Welcome to the Dynasty Pulse and happy freaking New Year.
Yeah.
It's 2025. We just saw our championships won and lost, mostly won. And Dynasty never sleeps. So we are headed into the 2025 Dynasty offseason. But before we get into our rookie assessments and our combine analysis and our draft projections and all that stuff, we're going to hit you with a 2024 retrospective, and that's what we're doing tonight. Boys, how you guys doing?
Oh, man, it has been a great season. Can't ask
I
anything.
am Bigz. We got Coach Retzlaff in the corner, Grindberg above me, Schultzy in the corner, and Chev to my other side. We don't have the names on the screen, so I just wanted to tell everybody who we were. Sorry about that, Mike.
No worries there.
Go ahead, Mike.
I just wanted to, say hi to everybody and just enjoy this moment because it's been a grind. As fantasy football content creators, the season is a grind and it feels like it's a repetition of, day in and day out stuff. I'm really looking forward to the off season and, the content is a little bit more, less, static. It's more, with the times and it's kind of what you want to do. And, there's less of a rush involved to it. There's more analysis involved. And I'm really looking forward to breaking down the rookies, after the combine, after the Senior Bowl, after the draft. I'm really looking forward to, every step of the way. And we're going to have a good friend of ours, Bigz, visiting all of those, so it's going to be really cool to see that from up front and get his experience. And we're going to get some great content heading our way. And, let's get this show going, guys. What a great season it's been. How y'all doing, Coach? What's your New Year's like?
Hey, it's funny you say you hit the nail on the head, Mike. What's wild from having coached in the past, there was always this weird feeling that first day, whether your season was done or that first time after the playoffs, and that was it. You're used to getting in your car, going to the practice field and seeing the kids there, and you're ready. You're in your repetition. For us, it's Monday through Saturday prep for Sunday, right? Of course, you have Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, but you're so used to that. And the weirdest thing as a coach is not seeing your team, your group of kids out there getting ready for practice, you getting your equipment out there. That first time that the field is empty, it's a chilling, it's a weird feeling. And it's kind of funny here with fantasy football. We've been so in that Grindberg is, Thursday night football. There's no Thursday night game. It just kind of starts and trickles away. Week 18, we get a little bit of an appetizer out of things because this isn't fantasy relevant, but it's becoming more dynasty relevant. So, yeah, Happy New Year to everybody.
Chev, man, how are you doing, buddy?
Oh, dude, if I was any better, I'd be twins. Now, I do have a vast chasm of free time that I don't know what to do with now. Like, I'm not just randomly searching Twitter for Chase Brown updates or T. Higgins Hill updates or George Pickens. Just searching George Pickens to see the latest crash out, which, if you haven't, by the way, it is absolutely chef's kiss. But yeah, I'm doing great. Like Coach said, it's a little weird this first week with no fantasy implications games to prep for. But if you're a real one and you've adopted the year-long lifestyle, now is where the fun begins because we're getting into evaluation season. And that's, first, we're going to evaluate our takes and what worked and what didn't, and then we're going to get into evaluating this upcoming rookie class, and that makes me harder than a diamond in an ice storm.
Oh, what an analogy. I love that. Now, Schultzy, haven't heard from you in a while. What are you up to? How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going well. It's insane that the fantasy season's come and gone already, but here we are.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast it goes by, and we're ready to go. I'm looking forward to seeing what your Jags do this offseason with healthy Trevor Lawrence, and things look optimistic there. Biggs and I were talking about it on a couple shows tonight, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens there. Now let's get into some
Back with Doug Peterson, baby.
No, I gotta go.
All right.
Oh, dude, is Doug confirmed coming back in 2025?
Extended for 6 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, give him that Gruden deal. Give him that Gruden
Yeah.
deal. That's what you need in Jacksonville.
10 for 10 for 10,
racist
10 for
emails.
100. I love it.
I'm
Anyone
looking
got
for
some
emails.
racist emails from Doug?
Check his email. Yeah.
Schultzy will make the racist emails from Doug.
Chat GPT, make the most racist email and make it from Doug Peterson.
I love it. Oh my God. Let's go. All right, guys, let's get into the bulk of the show here. Let's talk about our best calls, our worst calls of 2024. And Schultzy, you're up on the show sheet. So let's hear about you, man. How was your best
All right.
call?
It was the best of calls. It was the worst of calls. Am I right?
Yep.
That's Dickensian. Now it's Schlutzian.
Schultzy, that's right. You didn't get the memo. Sorry. My best call was CJ Stroud is massively overpriced this offseason. The big thing for me was he's getting drafted, redraft and dynasty startups among all the absolute cheat code rushing quarterbacks, and he doesn't run. Last season, he was massively inflated by that one game against, I want to say it was the Buccaneers. He had like 400 something yards, 5 touchdowns. Other than that, it was all just like fine performances. He never threw more than 2 touchdowns. Let's see. Let me get back to 2023 here. Threw more than 2 touchdowns that one game where he threw 5. Now, if you're not going to run, like, you got to be this year's Joe Burrow. And
Or
he's
Dak
just,
Prescott 2023.
right, and that's just not who he is. You had to look at him and know there was at least a little bit of regression coming with the league. They got a year of film on him. They got a year of film on the Bobby Slowick offense. So there was a little bit of regression, like just in general, that I thought was coming. And then just to tie that into just the price on him, man, for, like I said, I just never saw the production. He, even with everything that happened, he finished QB 11, and we were expecting him to just take this absolutely massive jump as a community. I never saw it. So I was big time out on where he was getting drafted. I didn't want anything to do with him, and he had almost an identical fantasy season this year. Once again, one game with more than 2 touchdown passes. The rushing is just not there. 2 games where he surpassed 300 yards. Like, he's just not racking up stats. Like, he's still a really good quarterback, not a really good fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, let me jump in here and I'm going to put CJ Stroud into perspective. Now, I remember having a preseason argument with somebody who wanted to draft them in the top 8 quarterbacks, and me saying no, that's too high. Okay, so through CJ Stroud's 2024 season, he had 526 throws for 3,677 yards, 62.7% completion percentage, 19 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 86. Quarterback 2, through 16 professional games, has 552 throws and 3,616 yards, so about 60 yards short, 62.1% completion percentage, which is about 0.6 fewer, 18 touchdowns, 1 less, 10 interceptions, so fewer interceptions, and an 84.5 quarterback rating, which is right there with everything that CJ Stroud is doing. That's Aiden O'Connell. Their numbers are identical. Aiden O'Connell's first 16 games as a pro and CJ Stroud's 2024 season.
Yeah, and the last thing here with Stroud is this year he topped 20 fantasy points once.
So did Aiden.
Crazy. Love it. I love that.
The narrative was always way, like his value was way inflated because of the fact that they added Stephon Diggs, and you thought that they were going to be strict 11 personnel offense, and like he's just got these weapons, and they're going to instantly become the greatest show on turf, not taking into account the fact that like Bobby Slowick just wants to run, like from a real football perspective, that's not how they were built once they started winning games.
Right.
And so, you were going to have to count on this outlier season. To you guys' point, the expectations were never going to line up with the reality in any way, shape, or form. I remember talking to one of my buddies I've been in the league with for a really long time, and I was like, so in the league, we have a 300-yard bonus. Like you get 2 points if the quarterback throws for 300 yards. And I was like, hey, man, so you think that CJ Stroud's going to outscore Jalen Hurts this year? What does that look like? Like, he had 6 300-yard games as a rookie. Like, how many times do you think he's going to go for over 300 yards? And he was like, oh, man, probably like 11. And I was like, okay. So I went back and did the research. I went back to like 2018. The only quarterback to go over 300 like 9 times in the season before I guess Joe Burrow did it this year was Mahomes.
Jared Goff. Oh, okay.
Yeah. He did it 9 times. No other quarterback did it more than 7 times in a season. And you think about it, these guys are throwing for like 4,500 yards. Like, it's like they're not throwing for 300 yards on a consistent basis. And that, like, you're either going to have that, or you're going to have him throwing multiple touchdowns, 300 yards, multiple touchdowns in order to get the fantasy ceiling to where he was being drafted at, like QB5 or QB6,
rushing for 500.
Yeah, or giving you 500 yards rushing. Like,
I think he was buoyed a lot by the turnaround that the Texans made, plus Nico Collins breakout, plus Tank Dell, everybody wanting Tank Dell to break out.
Well, you thought you had two 1,200-yard receivers, because that's what Tank Dell paced for from weeks 5 to when he broke his ankle or broke his leg. It was 80 for 1,200 and 12 touchdowns. So you thought you had 2 1,200-yard receivers, and then you added Stephon Diggs. Like, that's just it's not realistic to just go complete ceiling. Like, oh, nothing could go wrong. What could go wrong?
1,000 yards for everybody.
I had him in a league where you start 3 quarterbacks, and he didn't break into the starting lineup like for the last 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, like
he was just a roster filler.
Well, you brought up a good point, Chev, about ceiling. And market-wise, to what Schultzy was predicting, it was a ceiling price. We're talking mid-single-digit round pick, 5th round, 6th round. And we're talking there was a clump 3-4 rounds later of the Burrows, the Kyler Murrays, the Dak Prescotts, the Jayden Daniels, even down to Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff. There was a huge clump in the territory where you just said to yourself, okay, if there's no rushing upside, because to your point about the 500 rushing yards on Player Profiler, CJ Stroud this year, 233 rushing yards, so not even halfway to 500 rushing yards. Unless somebody like CJ Stroud runs pure to the likes of somebody like a Matthew Stafford, I think that's where people wanted him to elevate CJ Stroud up to that plethora of prime Matthew Stafford year in, year out, where he's supporting multiple top 10 wide receivers in a given week, and then, of course, accruing throughout an entire season. We thought we were going to get that. And then if you just kind of did a little bit of Socratic method and said, well, what if CJ Stroud doesn't run pure in ceiling on these passing yards, on the passing touchdowns? The avenue is not there in the rushing game. This is a very high ceiling price that to pinpoint to hit that for CJ Stroud was really ceiling, which is funny because now there's going to be a 4-round discount where that's where I'm actually going to be interested. So it's funny how it's going to flip. I wasn't interested then. Now I'm going to be interested. We talk about all the time. Matthew Kelly talks about it. You don't hate players. You hate their ADPs. I'm going to love the ADP shift. So give me that CJ Stroud discount on top of that. Great call.
Yeah.
Right, but you're still in a situation where he went from QB1 to now he's in QB3 territory. So how much really is he going to benefit you if you target him even at value? He's QB3 guy. And
No,
in a single quarterback format, he's probably going to go undrafted next year.
Yeah.
But he's shown that potential that he can have that QB1 upside. So there's got to be a happy medium here. He lost, Tank Dell. Yeah. I think he could be a solid performer, like a QB mid-range QB2. And if I'm getting him at a high end, like a low end QB2, I'm taking that value in draft.
There's a chance for upside at the discount that you're now going to
sure.
get.
Yeah. That's the buy window there for me. I'm not thinking he's going to break the top 12 ever again, unless he gets another wide receiver one. But Nico Collins is the alpha there, and he looks amazing. And if he's in the lineup, there's going to be that upside. You give him some healthy options as somebody that could take some pressure off. And Joe Mixon's a year, now more, we saw what he did at the end of last year. They need a healthy run game for them to be successful. I just think that there could be some optimism here down the stretch, and I'm not losing all my faith on CJ Stroud.
The two things that I'll be paying attention to make me buy back into CJ Stroud. One, what do they do with the offensive line to upgrade the guard, like the center and guard positions? Does Laramie Tunsil return to all-pro form? And then what do they do to upgrade the center and guard positions for the Texans? Because that's the one thing you can't have for a pocket passer is pressure coming directly into their face from the interior, from the defensive interior. And that's a big part of why we saw a deterioration of his throwing mechanics and his accuracy. And the second thing is, like you said, they're going to have to bring in another receiver to go along with Nico Collins if we're going to predict this outcome. If he's ever going to get close to that ceiling, basically to be a top 5 quarterback as a pocket passer, you've got to be around 4,500 yards, around 35 touchdowns. It's the Burrow-Mendoza line. Like, that's where you have to be a top 5 quarterback. And they're just not going to throw the ball enough. So the second thing would be them getting a different offensive coordinator other than Bobby Slowick, who probably is not going to be a hot hire in the coaching circles. This coaching or the hot new hotness in the coaching cycle hire. So I'm not going to. There's upside, but I don't know that I can buy back into CJ Stroud as a starter for my team. But we're talking best ball, we're talking dynasty. If he's QB 19, QB 20, maybe, sure, I could take. I can get a Burrow early, which Burrow's probably going to be like QB 4 in best ball drafts next year, and then I can take a shot on a Nico Collins, CJ Stroud stack. But yeah, I just there's no path for me for him to hit the ceiling that he needs to pay off on QB5 ADP.
No, and I don't think he's going to be priced there anyway. He didn't have any rushing touchdowns this year. He had 3 as a rookie. He had more rushing yards and more rushes, but he had 0 touchdowns. He took a step back in touchdowns. He threw 7 more interceptions than he did the year before. And one of the narratives with him was how he was not throwing interceptions for the first 8-9 weeks of the season. And then he, of course, regressed back to the mean, finishing at 11 in his rookie season and QB 18. I feel like splitting the difference and calling him like QB 14 is fine. When I'm drafting for Superflex, I want to have 2 top 12 quarterbacks, period. And I'm willing to pay that. And he's just outside of that. So to me, he doesn't even reach QB2 level, even if you can expect his ceiling to be QB 11. So
no,
that's no for me, dog.
And if that's his ceiling too, that ceiling came on a really terrible team with a absolute sieve of a defense, and so he played.
I'm
a lot
not
of
sure if we
catch
can
up.
consider a guy's rookie season his ceiling. Like,
Okay, so rookie
like-
to sophomore season, he had 30 more total attempts, but he was more accurate. He completed 11 more passes, but he also threw for about 400 something fewer yards, and he also didn't have the rushing touchdowns, and he threw for way more interceptions. So who's the real CJ Stroud? You got, based on a 2-year sample, you got to split the difference and say he's about in the mid-teens range.
Yeah, and his QB11 finish came in a situation I don't think we're going to see repeated. Like a team that sucks that bad with a defense that sucks that bad. I just don't see that happening again.
he only played 15 games last year, and he finished as the QB11. So he played the full slate. He's probably a top 6 play.
I'd feel comfortable going inside the top, like maybe 9, but I couldn't get to 6.
Well, let's see. He finished probably, I think fantasy points per game, he was 9. So if we finish that on average,
Yeah. I'm cool. Like I said, I'm cool with 9, but the thing, like I said, the two
so is that
things
his ceiling as a rookie? You think that's his plateau? He's going to be, that's where he's going to be at his best?
Well, okay. So, for example, let's take Matthew Stafford, the guy that we mentioned earlier in this discussion. Like, he has 2 seasons of 5,040 and like 6 seasons of round 4,000, 4,100, and 26 to 32. Like, that's where he's probably going to land. I mean, outside, like Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, like, the 5,040s are outliers. That's just what it is. Like, Jared Goff's been the most consistent as a Detroit Lion, and that's around 4,400. And like, I mean, this year it's what, 35, but last year it was 29. You know, like cracking that 30 touchdown ceiling is not like, that's not. Baker was QB 7 last year, and he was 4,128.
Let me put my Coach Retzlaff hat on here real quick. Okay, Chev, CJ Stroud or Justin Herbert?
Herbert, easy.
Okay, Coach Retzlaff, CJ Stroud or Brock Purdy?
Brock Purdy.
Okay, I'm gonna direct it at you, Mike. CJ Stroud or Brock Purdy or Justin Herbert?
I take Herbert and Purdy.
And Schultzy, you, Brock
Trevor
Purdy.
Lawrence.
Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So we have Justin Herbert having a better year and finishing as QB 13. We have Brock Purdy finishing again in the top 12, which we know he's going, like, year over year he's going to be doing that. Fantasy points last year had him as the number 2 fantasy points per drop back quarterback, and I mean that's like where his consistency lies. So once we start talking about drafting CJ Stroud over Brock Purdy and Justin Herbert, that's where I kind of cut bait.
Yeah. I won't be anywhere near that. I mean, I just think that he could, return mid-range QB2, and if he's going on the latter half of that, like there could be some value there from someone that has proved it. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not a CJ Stroud guy right now.
He was mispriced, and now he's going to be properly priced to where we will be able to catch some value on him versus if he didn't hit this mark, it was curtains, and that's exactly what happened this year.
Right. Now, okay, so I'm going to continue the exercise. I'm just going to go down the list. Caleb Williams, Geno Smith, Jordan Love, or CJ Stroud?
I think Love and Stroud are where it could get even.
Aaron Rodgers was ahead of him too, right?
Yeah, but I don't think anybody is in on Aaron Rodgers for 2025, especially considering he's talking about retirement.
I'd go Love, but I'd take CJ Stroud over Geno.
Yeah,
Me too.
Yeah, in Dynasty based on age. I think if anybody has an opportunity to jump back up into that top 12, I think Love can do it with that arsenal and his rushing upside. And
if they don't go, if he's attempting more than 24 passes a game.
Yeah, I just think being outside all the time and they want to run the ball. We could see that they want to run the ball. I prefer the dome quarterback in this situation.
In an easier division too.
Yeah, in an easier division, just based off of that, and just knowing how much they spread the ball around in Green Bay. Like, I'm leaning towards Stroud just because of the I love Jordan Love. I think they're both good, but that's a tough one. That's a very tough one.
That's fair, but I'm still.
Love is QB 16 on the year, and Stroud is 18. So that's a very good measure of market. And the guys in age are close, and they're on these up and up teams.
And you have Stafford, Rodgers, and Geno Smith in that same little area. But my point is that I'm drafting somebody in the top 5 or 6, and then after that, if I'm going for value, I'm going for Purdy and Herbert. And if after that I'm taking a QB3, then I'm starting to look at CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, those guys.
And you also dropped in that second tier of the exercise. Did you not say Caleb Williams as well?
Yeah, but he should elevate.
That's what I was. I would go towards Caleb there because I see more of that upside.
Yeah, right. Caleb's got like 500 yards rushing this year too.
Yeah, I figured that just went without saying.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we spent like a good 15 minutes on CJ Stroud. So good on you there, Schultzy.
That's what makes the show great.
Should we tag team this one there, Retzlaff?
Absolutely. Let's talk that shit.
Okay, go ahead, man.
Hey man, Jayden Daniels. For me, it was him over Caleb Williams. The juxtaposition for Grindberg was, hey, there's going to be all these accolades for Jayden Daniels. Cut me off whenever you want, Mike, and spit your game on this. But they were being, compared as prospects. People were just, hey, bona fide. It's Caleb Williams over Jayden Daniels. And all I could do last year is look at the stat lines in college. And I just thought, who would I prefer in fantasy football? To me, it was easy tabulating the rushing and the passing numbers for Jayden Daniels at LSU. Those were just video game numbers, which is what we look for. The only thing I had a concern about Jayden Daniels was the car accident-inducing plays that he would get into where he wouldn't protect his body. I think he did mostly good in his rookie year. I have no concern. I actually think Daniels will improve forward on that. He hit so good his rookie season. There was a time, and there still will be a time, where we'll talk about Daniels versus Josh Allen. There's a 4-year difference for them, and that comes into question in Dynasty. Mike, actually, it's perfect that you're on him too. Mike talked about contemplating for his Dynasty championship, Jayden Daniels, Josh Allen. Should he trade away Josh Allen for Daniels? Because Jayden Daniels versus the Falcons, it was a very good matchup. Rankings and stances get made all the time. And he was trying to postulate who's going to shoot out more, Josh Allen versus the Jets or Jayden Daniels versus the Falcons. But the truth comes out in the questions, right? We ask ourselves, player A and player B. Player A is a stud. Player B is an unproven player. And player A struggles for 2 weeks, while player B lights the world on fire for 2 weeks. And then it comes to the third week where player A, who's the established stud, has a tough matchup. And then player B, who's unproven, who's done well the last 2 weeks, has a very plus matchup. All of a sudden, it becomes a debate for us. So here's some Daniels numbers for us. Daniels was the QB3 in Dynasty on Player Profiler for rankings behind Allen and Lamar. Daniels is 4 years younger than Allen and Lamar and is ascending. Jayden Daniels ends up as the QB4 on the season. For rushing, we talked about CJ Stroud, right? Daniels is second in carries per game, red zone carries per game. Daniels is number 1 in rushing yards at the quarterback position, 864 in rushing yards per game with 54. Daniels is third in best ball points added with 86.1, fourth in fantasy points per dropback, second in expected fantasy points per game, eighth in passing touchdowns with 25. So people will talk about all the time, okay, this guy is just a rusher, this guy's just a passer. People don't realize that Daniels is a passer first, a prolific passer first. And what he does in the rushing game is elite in its own right. But Daniels, people need to come correct, is an absolute baller as a quarterback, as a thrower of the football. In Dynasty, though, 2 things that get our blood flowing. All right, I know Chev was talking about getting his blood flowing earlier with the rookie prospect season. Here's what it gets us going, right? 1, discovery of talent. 2, optimal entry point on acquiring players. So to put it another way, being ahead of the market and being accurate on your own evaluation. If you're in on Jayden Daniels, you've bought before the prices became obscene. Jayden Daniels is locked in as a top 3 startup pickup in Superflex. If you want to argue semantics in those startups, top 5. With that also comes the cost in the trade. Pick-wise, if it doesn't start with 3 firsts, there isn't a discussion. Jayden Daniels, one of my better calls. Mike, take it away. I know you were in on him as well.
I couldn't even trade this week, championship week, in a guy that, was 11th place. I was looking at matchups. I was really worried about the Jets game, and just because of the upside for Josh Allen, he helped carry me to my championship. But this week was a tough week for all of us as fantasy managers. If you were playing championship games, every day was a challenge from Wednesday to Sunday, and you're making last minute trades if you can in these dynasty leagues that allow trading still. And I was trying to optimize my lineup. And Jayden Daniels was, a guy that I thought was probably going to finish as the QB1 this week or close to it. Baker Mayfield was on my radar too, but I just didn't think that giving up Josh Allen and anything else on the guy's roster was worth it. I offered Josh Allen and a 27 first for Jayden Daniels, and it got rejected. And that's crazy. And I
That's
said to
Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like that's Josh Allen, and that's how much this person valued Jayden Daniels. And I'm not saying like I mean, obviously the guy is high on him, but for any price, I'm making that trade because of the value of Josh Allen and the first. But straight up, are we making that trade? I don't know. Like Josh Allen for Jayden Daniels straight up. Like, what do you if maybe if you're a competing team, you're going with Josh. What do you do?
I don't think there's any way you send Josh Allen right now straight up for Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, that's fair.
The biggest challenge is finding 2 people, and this will speak to how much Jayden Daniels has come up, right? I think you'll have difficulty finding a Josh Allen person and a Jayden Daniels person who will do the swap, because the holders, whatever is the endowment effect, right? Whoever holds, they're not going to want to swap to the other side. But that is a testament to how much Jayden Daniels has pulled up.
Well, no matter who you're holding, you're going to convince yourself the guy that you're holding is better, whether it's Josh Allen that you're telling yourself has been QB1, or Jayden Daniels you're convincing yourself because he's younger.
You got to get 2 people to do this now.
Right.
There's no way that you're going to move one straight up for the other one. Right. Like, you have to add on either side. And those owners are both they're going to talk through their talking points. Josh Allen has a 700-yard rushing floor and double-digit touchdowns. He's the goal line back. He also is going to throw for like 35 touchdowns and another 4,000 yards passing. Like, there's no way you're going to talk yourself into moving off of one or the other straight up. It makes no sense. Like, that's not good process in my opinion.
Yeah,
exactly. And for somebody out of the playoffs to not make that trade is pretty ridiculous. You're getting Josh Allen, and you're getting like the chance for a Jeremiah Smith type pick in 2027. Now, maybe you could argue that trying to get that pick from you after the 2026 season is over would be better because your team might be lower.
Every time I hear that Jeremiah Smith, I get real excited.
Me too. Coming into the season, I was absolutely higher on Jayden Daniels than Caleb Williams, and I said it on a lot of shows. I had Caleb Williams tagged as somebody who was going to take some time, even if he had the weapons around him in Chicago. And I looked at there was a stat that I saw that was basically the top 4 fantasy college seasons of all time, and Jayden Daniels was in that top 4, and the other 3 guys that were there were Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and like somebody else who like washed out. But it was but the top 3 were Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Jayden Daniels. So Jayden Daniels, I knew was going to make an impact immediately, and Caleb was going to take some time, which just meant I had way more Jayden Daniels than I had Caleb Williams because I wasn't willing to wait.
Love it. All right, who's next up here? Let's go with
It's me. It's me.
Let's go with Bigz.
All right, I said it on the show before. I've said it on almost every show I've been on. I had a tweet that, for me, went viral. It was my most controversial tweet. It was the tweet that got the most traction of my account. I had the most comments. I had the most discussion. And in that tweet, I said, I just drafted Ladd McConkey at the 108 ahead of Rome Odunze, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And going into the season, I had Ladd McConkey pegged over Rome Odunze every way from Sunday, and I wasn't going to move off of that. And the first opportunity I had to show my ass, I did, and Ladd McConkey absolutely backed me up. For the season, Ladd McConkey had 104 targets and 77 catches, just over a 75% catch rate. In 16 games, he had 3 top 10 finishes. He was top 36 11 times, meaning that more than half of his games, he was worthy of at least a flex spot. He had 29 points in championship week to go along with his other 29-point finish earlier in the season. And he finished the year as wide receiver 12, a wide receiver 1 finish. Smashed. I told everybody, you look at this guy's yards after the catch, you look at this guy's missed tackles force, you look at what he does, yards per route run against zone coverage. He is going to be the slot receiver, the Justin Herbert's best friend. Every time Justin Herbert finds himself in trouble, he's going to look up and he's going to see an open Ladd McConkey. And you could see that with his 75% catch rate and his over 100 targets as a rookie. Contrast that with Rome Odunze, who finished as wide receiver 48. That's wide receiver 4 territory. We knew that Odunze was going to have a hard time getting traction simply because he was with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and we knew that. We knew that he was going to have some growing pains with a rookie quarterback and all that stuff. So people who were drafting Rome Odunze over Ladd McConkey were doing it based on talent. And of course, we hear in Dynasty all the time, talent over situation, which is fine, but I don't necessarily buy it. Rome Odunze, throughout the course of the 16 games of his season, had 12 single-digit performances. That's not helping anybody. He had 99 targets, 5 targets short of Ladd McConkey. So Caleb was throwing the ball as much to Rome Odunze as Justin Herbert was to Ladd McConkey. He had 52 catches. That was basically a 50% catch rate. There's another rookie that I had that Ladd rated over, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr., and his catch rate was pretty similar. Quarterbacks are very much a factor with rookie wide receivers, not named Brian Thomas Jr., and it showed out. It played out. Kyler Murray not being able to get the ball into Marvin Harrison Jr.'s hands, Caleb Williams not being able to get the ball into Rome Odunze's hands. I said take Ladd McConkey over both of those guys, and I fucking nailed it. Welcome to the Dynasty Pulse. So the way that StreamYard has it set up is that there's an intro video. So if you pause it and then hit play again, which Mike just did, then it plays the intro video again.
Classic StreamYard.
Classic.
If you recall, go in your Wayback Machine to 3 minutes ago, I had Ladd over Rome. Chev, what was your best call of 2024?
Best call of 2024.
Wait. You know what? No. I want to hear some, like, we didn't talk about my thing. I want to hear all of you guys talk about my stuff, and then we'll get into the show.
Joke. Ladd McConkey.
What are your Ladd McConkey takes?
So I personally was not as keyed up about Ladd McConkey. I recognized that there was a massive target vacuum there that he could just step into and get as many targets as you as you can possibly imagine. I think that, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up where I had him at. I had him around 105 targets, but I had him finishing with around 800 yards receiving. Give me, where the hell are my rankings? Anyway, as I get that pulled up, I thought that it would be kind of more of a division of labor between he and Josh Palmer, but it turns out Ladd McConkey is incredible. Now, I'm a Romo Dunze guy. I think that this is probably like the Devontae Adams career arc is what I had pegged for him the minute that he went to Chicago, and I knew they traded for Keenan Allen, and then they gave DJ Moore the $110 million contract extension. So this was never going to be, for me, this was never going to be his breakout season. I'm still very, very hopeful for him in Dynasty, but yes, 1,000%. This, like, Ladd McConkey's runway was cleared, and he did everything that he was supposed to do with it. He's a certified stud. I regret not having more of him in all of my leagues.
Yeah.
What that reminds me of, kind of, and you say the Devontae Adams arc. It could also be the Keenan Allen arc. But what it reminds me of is a couple of years ago when we had Jordan Addison, JSN, and Quentin Johnson all come out at the same time. And everybody said Jordan Addison is going to be the guy that hits as a rookie, and JSN is going to be the guy that hits after that. And
JSN, yeah, it's perfect.
So I can totally see that as Jordan Addison, Ladd McConkey, Romo Dunze, JSN, and all that means is I'm going to take all my lads and trade them for Rome plus, and then year 3, Rome's going to be that dude.
I don't believe you.
No, there's no way.
There's no way.
Fucking dads for Ladd. There's zero chance you're giving him up for.
That's what I'm saying. Dads for Ladd. He is not doing that.
Try to gaslight the never. Zero chance. Not even if there was a fire.
I sold Bitcoin. I'm just saying.
There you go.
If you take what we've got for,
Understood.
Go ahead, Coach.
For 3 rookie receivers to hit Malik Neighbors, BTJ, and then Ladd McConkey, it's funny where this conversation is steering. Funny enough, I think all of a sudden it becomes, I believe there's going to be a 4th wide receiver to hit faux show. And that wide receiver is going to be Roma Dunze. It now becomes, well, yes, absolutely. In on him. Thank you for mentioning him. But it becomes Roma Dunze, Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to break free, because the 3 that we have right now, BTJ, Neighbors, and Ladd, wide receiver 1s, just excellent seasons for them. And it's funny, to my lesson for me in reflection, I was in on Ladd McConkey. I wasn't to the steepness that you were, Bigz. What I kick myself for, and what I'm going to try and build in my portfolio process next year, is so many people were out on Justin Herbert. So I could have been in more on Justin Herbert to catapult up some of those Ladd McConkey teams, because I had good enough exposure on Ladd where I would have benefited and catapulted up even more had I had some Justin Herbert. So great call by you. And
the Justin Herbert thing is
on Ladd next year a ton.
The evidence is there. He had an incredible rookie year, and just over the next 5 years, just completely descended. But the big thing, and you might recall from my player profiler article about Deontay Johnson versus Ladd McConkey, I tried to bring up the reason that everybody was so low on Justin Herbert, and that was the Greg Roman offense. And if you think back a couple years ago, Greg Roman's offense is what unlocked Lamar Jackson's throwing, and he sustained a 140 target wide receiver in Hollywood Brown. So it's not out of the question that somebody who had the rushing upside in college of Justin Herbert in a Greg Roman offense was going to be able to like hit those heights, not necessarily Lamar Jackson level, but Greg Roman's not an idiot, and he knows the talent that's in front of him, and he does want a rush first, 52% rushing offense, but he's gonna be able to sustain fantasy wide receivers, and that's Ladd.
Hey, and shout out to a summer episode with Ryan Heath on the Dynasty Pulse, where he taught us about first down per route run, right?
Yes.
And Ladd was quite a monster in that stat. And yeah, because of Ryan, that was one of the big reasons I started to get turned on to him, was hearing him preach Ladd on that episode. And I wasn't able to grab shares of him, but yeah, damn, he's impressive, man.
Yep.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was awesome all the way. And a lot of people were scared off of him because of his small sample size in college, but, his yards per route run, his first down per route run, we were on that. And it ended up being very, very fortuitous for Bigz and I this year. Absolutely. Because, on one of our other shows, he was one of my MVPs as well, as far as a guy that I was really high on. And I think Bigz and I just kind of try to have the bigger bravado as far as who was higher on Ladd, and then he went and did the Roma Dunze tweet, and it's all done. Ladd is his guy.
29 points fantasy championship week was
awesome.
That was a monster.
It was huge.
All right, Chev, let's go. Your
Easy.
2024 best call.
Easy. And this goes all the way back to the preseason. I had this fever dream where there's a running back, and he was drafted in the 5th round, and he had a starter in front of him that was just a guy, just regular old plotter, and there was an opportunity there, and he was like, hey, I'm really good, this is gonna happen. And then he did it. And that
I think he drinks maple syrup for breakfast.
Yeah, he is
It was Chuba Hubbard.
Just an avid fan. Not that Canadian, but the Canadian from Ohio with a twin brother in the NFL. Chase Brown was going to be this year's Kyron Williams. I caught on to this because I've been a Chase Brown guy since the evaluation process in 2023. I was like, man, this dude got like 300 carries, and everybody's kind of labeling him a scat back, but he had 300 carries and like 30 catches his senior year in college.
In the Big Ten, too.
In the Big Ten. This is a workhorse guy, and they're thinking of him as like a little bit. He's 210 pounds. Then he comes out and he runs a 4.4. And then he's stuck behind Joe Mixon for a year. And then they jettison Joe Mixon off to the Texans for a 7th-round pick or whatever it was, and they bring in Zach Moss, and everybody's like, Zach Moss is going to be the guy. Newsflash, Zach Moss never been the guy. So then, and I'm like, there's all the only thing standing between him and just winning people fantasy leagues is the workload. And pretty much up through the first 8 weeks of the season, they divvied up the carries, the touches. It was 101 for Zach Moss, 99 total touches for Chase Brown / Kyron Williams 2.0. And then Zach Moss goes on IR with the neck, and Kyron Williams is like the RB4 in points per game from basically week 9 to the end of the season. And I was locked in on this. I said it on my show. I was like, hey, in like preseason, Chase Brown is going to be this year's Kyron Williams. And I talked to a couple of my highest of confidants throughout the process, and I was like, hey, Chase Brown is going to be this year's Kyron Williams. And like, I looked like an idiot when Zach Moss was getting carries and getting way more. And then the minute that he got the full workload to himself, it was wheels up, and he was absolutely a guy who crushed it for you. Now, it slowed down a little bit in the playoffs, but I mean, you wouldn't have gotten there without him. So that was my thing. And to the point, even though Kyron went on IR last year, they had exactly the same amount of fantasy points. I think Kyron Williams had 255 PPR points in 2023. Chase Brown had 255.3 fantasy points in 2024. So yes,
that's crazy.
That was my call from the preseason, the one that I am most proud of. And people were just like, no, dude, it's not going to happen. I was like, it's a bold take for a reason, but this is where I am. That's where I live.
That's great. Yeah, it was a good call. Through his last 8 games, he averaged over 23 touches per game. So true workhorse back usage, and without a whole lot of competition next year, they may draft somebody later on in the draft, but I don't see them viable to his workload right away. They could bring in another veteran or whatnot, but they're not paying a running back there because they have so many big contracts there. So Chase Brown is a dynasty asset. And for me, I have him as a top 8 guy right now in dynasty, and I have no problems justifying that.
Important things to note with that. Chase Brown going into year 3 of a 4-year deal. Zach Moss signed 2 years, $8 million. So unless they spend heavy draft capital on a running back, which I don't foresee happening with all of the defensive needs that the Bengals have, I'm locked in on Chase Brown again for 2025, whatever it is, because of the history of usage with Zach Taylor and his running backs. I'm locked in.
Chase Brown has been one of those deeper analysis guys that Mike and I have been talking about for a little over a calendar year. In the first iteration of our shows over on Dynasty Pros, when we were getting into like the later season stuff in 2023, we were trying to like target him as much as possible, talked him up in the offseason before the Zach Moss signing. And then after the Zach Moss signing, we're talking about, hey, grab this guy because he's looked at as the RB2, he's going to be available as soon as Zach Moss goes down. You said Zach Moss will never, ever be that RB1, but in his fantasy points per game in the games he actually plays, he had a string of like a bunch of 20-plus point games in Buffalo when he got a chance, in Indy when he got a chance. So it made sense that Cincinnati was going to give him at least like a small bag of coin. But it was inevitable that he was going to get hurt at some point. So we wanted to be the holders of Chase Brown. Now, that's different than saying Chase Brown is going to be Kyron Williams. And that's an absolute nail on the head call, especially with that point total. That point total is as crazy as like Matt Cain having the same amount of innings pitched 3 seasons in a row. Like it's stuff that you cannot predict. And
gotta love baseball for that.
Great call. Great call, Chev.
Wasn't speaking of numbers, was it Kamara who had 81 receptions 3 years in a row?
3 years in a row.
Yes.
Yep. To your point, question for the room: is Chase Brown the new Austin Eckler?
No, he's different. He's bigger.
You think so? Okay, better.
Isn't he bigger?
Yeah, he's 10 pounds heavier and way faster.
I would say faster, definitely.
No, Lan Larison is the new Austin Eckler, obviously.
Well, I'm just asking from the standpoint of, okay, archetype of running backs, right? If a bell cow were to come in or somebody were to be drafted and it's a 60-40 split or it's 50-50 split, my argument for Chase Brown is even with fewer numbers or less opportunity share, he would still be hyper efficient. So that's where my angle, not body type, archetype, but I think in offering of the passing game and in the ability to be efficient off less volume. So what I would say is, even if there's a threat to Chase Brown, I think he's got his opportunity that's going to be locked in. But even if it does happen where some of his opportunity share gets threatened, I think he's going to take advantage, a la somebody like Austin Eckler.
Yeah, he'd be more akin to like Dalvin Cook for me. Body like archetype wise, and I don't care who they bring in. Unless they bring in Amarion Hampton, I'm drafting Chase Brown no matter what. They're not gonna draft Ashton Genty. He won't be there. So unless they bring in like Amarion Hampton, I'm in.
So do we want to get to stock up, stock down just to finish this off, or after Grindberg's, or are we going to cut it there and then
Well, yeah, I kind of just co-did a mine with Retzlaff there by Jayden Daniels take where.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I had him as a top 8.
So should we save stock up, stock down?
Yeah, let's do that for the next episode. We're already an hour in here, and it's been quite a bit of awesome content, guys. Like I love the snowballing on the CJ Stroud take. That's what this show is all about, is just kind of getting some good dialogue and some really good content for our viewers. And we'll be back next week with our, the guys that we missed on per se, one of our biggest misses of the year. And we'll try and get into stock up, stock down as well, because that's always a fun segment. Bigz, take us home,
With
man.
our special guest next week, Fantasy Receipts.
And I just want to say, I hit and I don't miss. I don't miss. I'm either early or late. I hit because I'm smart. I miss because of the human element.
There you go. We love it. All right, folks. Well, from everybody on the Undroppables Network, the Fantasy Football Plus Network, appreciate everybody from tuning in to the Dynasty Pulse as Jeremiah takes a swig of that sweet, sweet serum of maple syrup. We gotta love it, bro. We love it, love it, love it. It just Chev's reactions are always just epic.
I feel like we all need to have a bottle of maple syrup except for Grindberg, and then anytime anybody says Canada, or we all just hold up the bottle.
Yeah, or he says something very Canadian.
That's
right?
that's what I was going to say.
Whenever Mike says moron, like more on something, he says it very much like moron.
Or Falcon.
Falcon. It's a millennium Falcon.
Falcons.
Yeah, I try and correct myself. Bigz, I'm probably 50-50
No,
now.
it's only Falcon from now on.
I'm still trying to figure out what Fortunas means. No, so Schultzy and I have had this like running gag where we write down the words that Grindberg makes up, and
there's a lot of them. What was it today? Fortunas.
Fortunas. Yeah, it was great.
It was Fortunatus.
Well, on behalf of everybody at the Undroppables, everybody at Fantasy Football Plus, all of us and all that stuff, we'll see you next week, you guys, and we're glad you won.
Yeah.